If you've ever wondered what nothing sounds like, I can tell you. It's not peaceful. It's not quiet. It's a roaring, screaming vacuum that swallows every hope you didn't even realize you were still clinging to. It's the sound of your phone not ringing on your birthday. That was my soundtrack for the entire day. The deafening, humiliating silence. I'd woken up with a foolish, childish spark of hope. You know the one. It's the same spark that makes you check the doorstep for a present-shaped package or secretly believe that this year, they'll remember without the 10,000 reminders you've stopped giving out of pride. I'd even dreamed about it. A stupid dream of my family all gathered around a cake, my mother's laugh, my father's awkward pat on the shoulder, my sister handing me a clumsily wrapped gift. I woke up with a smile already on my face. The smile lasted until I reached for my phone.
9:47 Uhr morgens.
The screen was a barren wasteland of notifications for emails I didn't want and app updates I didn't need. No missed calls. No happy birthday texts with a string of emojis. Nothing from my family's group chat, which was usually buzzing with my sister's complaints about her kids or my mother's latest grievance against a neighbor. They're just waiting, I told the empty room, my voice sounding too small. They're letting me sleep in. Mom will call around 11. She always does. 11 came and went. The silence in my apartment grew heavier, taking up space. It pressed against the windows, muffled the sound of the city outside, and sat on my chest like a physical weight. I made myself a coffee, the mechanical grind of the beans an affront to the quiet. I scrolled through social media, a masochistic exercise that showed me a cascade of happiness. Other people's birthday brunches. Other people's families. Other people's bouquets of flowers and stacks of presents. Maybe they're planning a surprise, the desperate, hopeful part of my brain whispered. Maybe they're all in a car together, driving here right now. I even went so far as to clean the apartment. I fluffed the cushions, wiped down the counters, and put out clean towels in the guest bathroom, just in case. I was setting the stage for a play that had long since been canceled, auditioning for a part that didn't exist. By 3 p.m., the hope had curdled into something sour and anxious. The logical part of me knew. Of course they'd forgotten. Again. It was a tradition at this point. My birthday fell in that dead zone after the holidays, when everyone is broke, dieting, and thoroughly sick of one another. I was an afterthought, a calendar page that everyone was too tired to turn. But the sting was sharper this year. It was my 40th. The big one. The milestone that's supposed to be met with fanfare, a roast, a surprise trip to Vegas, anything that says, "We see you. You matter." My phone finally buzzed. My heart leapt into my throat, a traitorous, eager thing. I fumbled for it, my hands shaking. It was a promotional email from a furniture store I'd once bought a lamp from. "Celebrate your special day with 15% off," the subject line screamed. I threw my phone across the couch. It landed softly on a cushion, its screen dark and mute once more. The anger came then, hot and immediate, scalding the inside of my ribs. But it was quickly doused by a wave of such profound, bone-deep sadness that I had to sit down. Tears welled up, but I refused to let them fall. Crying would mean I still cared enough to be hurt, and I was suddenly desperate to feel nothing at all. I spent the next 2 hours just sitting, watching the light change in the room as the sun began to set. The shadows grew long, painting my clean, empty, silent apartment in shades of blue and gray. I was a ghost in my own home, on my own birthday, and then a thought. It wasn't a loud, dramatic thought. It was a quiet, simple, and utterly lucid click in my mind. A final piece of a puzzle I didn't know I was solving sliding into place. If no one was going to celebrate me, then I would celebrate myself. It wasn't about revenge, not yet. It was about survival. It was about proving to myself that I existed, that this day meant something, even if that meaning was only for me. I stood up. My movements were calm, deliberate. I walked to my bedroom and changed out of my lazy day clothes into a simple black dress. I applied a little makeup, covering the faint evidence of my earlier despair. I looked at myself in the mirror. A 40-year-old woman. Alone. Invisible. But not for long. I picked up my car keys from the bowl by the door. Their jangle was the first real sound I'd heard all day that I had chosen to make. It was a powerful sound. I didn't know where I was going. Not specifically. I just knew I had to drive. I had to move. I had to get away from the crushing silence of that apartment. I pointed my car north, out of the city, towards the one place that had always felt like a quiet sanctuary, a place I'd gone to as a teenager to escape the very same family that was now ignoring me. I was driving to the lake. The drive was a blur of fading twilight and my own racing thoughts. The familiar cityscape gave way to winding roads flanked by skeletal winter trees. I rolled the window down, letting the cold, clean air blast into the car. It was a slap in the face, a wake-up call. With every mile, the tight knot of self-pity in my chest began to loosen, replaced by a strange, buzzing sense of agency. I wasn't driving away from something anymore. I was driving towards something. The lake. Lake Serene. It was hopelessly misnamed on weekends in the summer, when it was packed with boats and shouting tourists. But on a cold, quiet evening in January, it was perfect. Serene indeed. I pulled into the overlook parking lot, the one that offered a panoramic view of the water. It was empty. My headlights swept across the wooden guardrail and then cut out as I turned off the engine. The silence returned, but it was a completely different silence than the one in my apartment. This wasn't an absence of sound. It was a presence of peace. The gentle lap of water against the shore far below, the sigh of the wind through the pines, the distant call of a lone bird. This silence welcomed me. It didn't judge me for being alone. It simply was. I got out of the car and walked to the railing, leaning against the cold, rough wood. The moon was rising, a sharp silver sickle casting a shimmering path across the black water. I took a deep breath, the air so cold it felt like it was scrubbing my lungs clean. I could see my breath plume out in front of me, a ghost in the moonlight. And that's when I saw it. Not a sign from the universe, nothing so dramatic. It was a literal sign, hammered into the ground a little further down the road, almost hidden by overgrown bushes. For sale. Lakefront. Absolute privacy. Call now. I laughed. A short, sharp, incredulous sound that was swallowed by the vastness of the night. Yeah, right, I thought. As if. But the idea, once planted, refused to be dislodged. It began to vine its way through my mind. A house. Here. Away from everyone. A place where the silence was a gift, not a punishment. A place where I could come and nobody would know. A place that was truly, completely mine. I'd been prudent. Painfully so. For 20 years, I'd worked a job I didn't love and salted away every spare penny into savings and retirement accounts. For what? A future that looked exactly like the present? A lonely retirement in a quiet apartment, waiting for a phone call that never came? My heart started to hammer against my ribs, not with anxiety, but with a wild, thrilling possibility. I pulled out my phone. The screen was still a barren wasteland of non-birthday wishes. The sight of it, here in this beautiful, peaceful place, didn't hurt anymore. It felt like a permission slip. I called the number on the sign. A man answered on the second ring. Don Draper, Lakeside Properties. He sounded like he was in the middle of dinner. The property on Ridge Road Overlook, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. Is it still available? Well, yes, it is, he said, a note of curiosity in his voice. Though it's a bit late for a viewing. I could schedule you for... I don't need a viewing, I said, cutting him off. The words were coming out of my mouth, but it felt like someone else was speaking them. A braver, more decisive version of me. What's the asking price? He told me. It was a number that should have made me gasp. It was almost exactly the amount I had sitting in my future savings account. The account for a future that wasn't coming. I'll take it, I said. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could hear the clink of cutlery in the background. Ma'am, you want to make an offer? Don't you want to see it first? It's a cash-only sale. The owners are very motivated, but they... I have cash, I interrupted again. It wasn't literal cash, but the money was liquid. I could access it. I'll meet you at your office in 30 minutes. Have the papers ready. Another pause, longer this time. I thought he'd hang up, thinking I was a lunatic. You're serious? It's my birthday, I said, and the words carried a weight he couldn't possibly understand. I'd like to buy myself a house. 37 minutes later, I was sitting in a brightly lit, beige-colored office that smelled of stale coffee and industrial carpet cleaner. Don Draper was a large man in a too-tight shirt who kept looking at me like he expected my sober, determined facade to crack at any moment. He slid a thick stack of documents across the desk. Now, this is the purchase agreement, he began, launching into a well-rehearsed spiel. I held up a hand. I just need to know where to sign. I didn't read the fine print. I didn't care about the square footage, the property taxes, or the well inspection. In that moment, I wasn't buying a structure made of wood and pipe. I was buying an idea. I was buying freedom. I was buying a giant, monumental, irrevocable fuck you to the day I'd had, to the years of being forgotten, to the silence. The price tag was irrelevant. The value was immeasurable. I signed my name, over and over. A flourish on the dotted line. Each signature felt like I was carving a new piece of myself into existence. With every scratch of the pen, the invisible woman in the silent apartment faded away. I was becoming someone new. Someone who took what she wanted. Someone who celebrated herself. I handed the last signed document back to Don. He blinked. Well, happy birthday, he said, a bewildered smile on his face. You're now the owner of a slightly dilapidated but very private lakefront cabin. I took the keys from his outstretched hand. They were cold and heavy. Real. The most real thing I'd held all day. I drove back to the overlook. My overlook. My lake. I walked down the path I now owned to the small, dark cabin nestled in the trees. It was perfect. It was mine. I stood on the porch, looking out at the moonlit water, the keys digging into my palm. The action was complete. The papers were signed. But the story wasn't over. They had forgotten me. But they would not get to forget what they had done. I pulled out my phone one last time. I opened the camera and took a single picture. It was a shot of the moon over the water, framed by the pine trees on my new property. It was breathtakingly beautiful. I opened my social media app. For the first time all day, I was about to post something. I uploaded the photo. In the caption box, I typed just one line. 3 words that held the entire story of my day, my hurt, my anger, and my triumphant, insane rebirth. I didn't tag anyone. I didn't need to. The algorithm would do its work. They would see it. My thumb hovered over the post button. I took one last look at the serene, silent lake. Then I pressed it. Happy birthday to me. Chapter 3. The Aftermath. Approximate 1,000 words. The first one to bite was my sister, Sarah. Her comment popped up within 2 minutes. Probably while she was scrolling on the toilet, ignoring her kids. Her response was pure, unadulterated confusion. Wait, what? Where is this? It's beautiful. Who took you here for your birthday? I didn't reply. I just watched. I had turned off my phone's ringer, but I left the notifications on. I sat on the dusty floor of my new cabin, my back against the wall, and I watched the screen light up like a slot machine hitting the jackpot. My mother's comment came next, 5 minutes after Sarah's. Hers was a masterclass in making my achievement about her. Sweetheart, that's a lovely photo. I've been trying to call you all day to wish you a happy birthday. Your father and I were so busy with the plumber, it's been a nightmare. Call me. Trying to call all day. The lie was so audacious, it was almost impressive. My call log remained pristine and empty, a testament to her selective memory. Then came the text. First from Sarah, a string of messages that grew increasingly frantic. Hello? Where are you? Is this from today? Who are you with? Mom says she's been calling you. Seriously, answer me. Then my mother. Sarah says you're not answering your phone. We're getting worried. Please call us. I could feel their confusion swirling through the digital ether, a delightful chaos I had created with one single post. They weren't worried about me. They were worried about the story. They had written the script for my birthday, the forgotten daughter, sitting alone and sad. My post had ripped up that script and set it on fire. They didn't know their lines anymore. My father, who hadn't acknowledged my birthday since I was 12, even texted.
It was just a question mark.
It was perfect. The real explosion happened when my Aunt Carol, my mother's sister who loves drama more than life itself, saw the post and called my mother directly. My phone lit up with a call. Not from my mother or my sister. From my cousin Lisa, who I actually like. I almost answered. But I didn't. This had to play out. Lisa's text came through a second later. Oh my God. Did you really buy a house? Mom just called Aunt Linda and is screaming about it. She said you posted you bought a house at the lake for your birthday. Is this true? LOL, if so, you're my hero. I smiled. A real, genuine smile for the first time that day. LOL, if so, you're my hero. Maybe I wasn't entirely alone. Then, the floodgates opened. The comments on the post were no longer just from family. Friends started seeing it. Wait, you bought this? Happy birthday. This is incredible. This is the most iconic birthday move I've ever seen. My private humiliation had been transformed into a public triumph. I had taken their neglect and alchemized it into power. My phone started ringing again. This time it was my mother. And she didn't stop. She called back to back, 7 times in a row. The screen would go dark, only to light up again seconds later with her name. It was the most attention she'd paid me in a decade. I let it go to voicemail. After the 7th call, a voicemail notification popped up. I put the phone on speaker and listened. Her voice was shrill, a wire stretched to its breaking point. I don't know what game you think you're playing, young lady, but this isn't funny. Sarah Googled the view, and it's from Ridge Road. Your father called Don Draper. You remember, the realtor who sold us the lake house years ago, and he confirmed it. He said you signed the papers tonight. What were you thinking? That is your entire savings. How could you be so irresponsible? Call me back this instant. We are coming over. Young lady. The condescension. The sheer, unadulterated fury that I had dared to do something without her permission, that I had spent my money on myself. The threat of coming over was the cherry on top. They'd remembered where I lived now that I'd done something they couldn't ignore. I didn't feel anger listening to it. I felt calm, vindicated. Her reaction was all the confirmation I needed that I had done the right thing. This wasn't about concern for my financial well-being. This was about control. They had lost it. My sister's voicemail was next. Less shrill, more panicked. Okay, you've made your point. We're sorry, okay? We forgot. It's a crazy time of year. But you can't just go and buy a house. That's insane. Mom is having a full-blown meltdown. You need to call Don in the morning and tell him you've changed your mind. Tell him you had a momentary lapse of judgment or something. Please, just call us.
Sorry.
The word was like a paperweight, trying to press down and flatten the huge, beautiful, chaotic thing I had done into something manageable. Into something they could apologize for, and then forget about. I didn't want their paperweight sorry. I wanted the earthquake. I spent the night in the cabin. It was cold, and there was no furniture, just a dusty fireplace and the echoes of my own freedom. I wrapped myself in the picnic blanket I kept in my car and watched the notifications continue to pour in. The initial wave of family panic subsided around midnight, replaced by a steady stream of messages from friends and acquaintances, all hailing my birthday purchase as the most legendary power move they'd ever seen. I was no longer the woman they'd forgotten. I was a myth, a legend, the woman who was so forgotten on her birthday that she bought a damn house. In the quiet of the early morning, with the first rays of sun turning the lake to gold, my phone buzzed one last time. It was a text from my father. The cabin on Ridge Road? The roof leaks in the east bedroom.
I stared at it for a long time.
It wasn't an apology. It wasn't a complaint. It was a piece of information. It was, in his own emotionally stunted, awkward way, an acknowledgement. He was speaking to me not as a child who had misbehaved, but as a homeowner. An equal. I wrote back for the first time all night. I know. I'll fix it. 3 dots appeared. He was typing. They bounced, then disappeared. Then appeared again. A long time passed. Finally, a new message came through. Happy birthday. It was 40 years too late, and it was absolutely perfect. It wasn't the birthday I dreamed of. It was better. I had given myself the one thing no one else ever had, a place where I truly belonged. And in doing so, I had finally made them see me. The silence in my new home was beautiful. It was all mine. And it was finally, blessedly, broken on my own terms. Their reaction was explosive. It was unforgettable. And it was the best birthday present I never got.